Hello, Steve White, Trickboy89 for Steve Arts 89, and I'm doing another look inside one of my favourite Star Trek books. The first look inside is a look inside the dust cover. I love that it's got the actual printed pattern of the Star Trek costume, the deltas from the movies, because there were so many custom versions that had different versions of this, and this really helped to work out which ones were accurate and which ones weren't back in the day, which is part of the reason why I bought it, because I was trying to get an accurate costume. So this book is all about, obviously, the costumes from the whole of Star Trek, and it's got introduction by Robert Blackman, who of course did most of the Next Generation designs, and of course it starts off in the original series. And that was kind of hit and miss. They didn't have a big budget. They were very inventive. They did some really amazing work. Some of it is embarrassing now, of course, but some of it's amazing. And I love the simplicity of the original costumes. I don't think they need to be improved. I think the uniforms are great. I think in the future we will want comfortable outfits, uniforms. We're not going to be wearing military style uncomfortable uniforms. So they keep trying to militarize the uniforms, and it's just doesn't work. You had a lot of fun with the women on the series. They did a lot of interesting things with what they wore. Again, the uniforms, I do think they improved them in the series. The pilot ones, they needed something. The dark collar really helps. And again, the female costumes were interesting. The Mirror Universe ones, again, they didn't have a lot of budget. They found ways to make it different. The miniskirts, I believe the miniskirts were partly designed by, inspired by or requested by some of the female cast members. Because the first pilot, they just had uniforms like the men. And it was an expression of women's liberation. Now we get to the original movies, where there was a higher quality, obviously, for the production design with the budgets. But they still don't stand out. I mean, the Klingon costumes were used forever because they were that good. Spock's costumes were beautiful. The motion picture, I think they were the best design. They were just the wrong colours. If they were done in charcoals and bright colours or muted colours on the front rather than just the colours they went with, they would have been far better. And we've all seen those sketches, which I'm surprised they weren't in here. When we got to the movies, the red outfits, they were too militaristic. Khan, was very eclectic because he's basically a scavenger. The engineering costumes, I think they look practical. They didn't spend enough time on the motion picture costumes. But yeah. See, if that was dark, and that was dark, and that was dark, and that was just coloured, and that was dark, it'd be great. The away missions, the Klingons again. And it is interesting that they did use this sort of armour and this shell sort of design for the Klingons in Discovery. And creatively it was good. At least the costuming and the sets on that in the first season were great. Some of the... where Star Trek goes wrong, where Star Trek goes awry with costuming, I think is in the Earth costumes, especially the Next Gen, which we'll get into soon. But the alien costumes are usually what's interesting and the most artistic and creative and beautiful. The Vulcans always had the best outfits, I think. The Klingons didn't do too bad when they got into the ceremonial stuff. And some of the aliens were interesting. I love that they had unicorns in Star Trek V. People forget they had unicorns in Star Trek V because the horns weren't so overdone. And I don't know, the movies weren't so bad with the Earth costumes, and the field uniforms, they were pretty good. And the Star Trek V Earth outfits. Well, they almost look like real clothes. Let's go to country. A lot of the films really were just variations on the earlier designs. A lot of the stuff from motion picture was abandoned. After Wrath of Khan, they pretty much just kept repeating that same style. Next Generation. Now, of course, better budget, more modern times, but still limitations, and a lot of the human clothes were, yeah. The alien ones are always fun. The dress uniforms, I like the scant. I think they should have kept the scant. I have no problem with the men wearing the scant. I think it's ridiculous. Gene set up a lot of things that were really brilliant, and then they got walked back because people in our time couldn't handle them. I never liked Wesley's weird little grey outfit. Jenna Troy, I'm not bothered by what she was wearing. The Borg was interesting because that was alien design, affected a lot by costuming. The Klingons, Guinan, she was always interesting. It's strange because it's like the varying things that you get used to, and you get used to a look that someone has, but yet every variation is interesting on its own. So I'm just rambling because I'm looking at the pictures. Now, Loaxana was a mess. Sometimes she looked amazing, other times she just... I hate that. There's one scene where she looked like Bette Midler in The Divine Miss M, the Diva Las Vegas. The wedding gown there is interesting. Some of the work, especially like I said, the alien work, is really beautiful. I never really liked that material. They use that too much in Next Gen, the hologram material, which, looked really modern and spacey to some people, but I didn't like it. The Next Gen uniforms were the best. Season 1 were the best ones next to the motion picture ones because they looked like they were just created in the replicator. They weren't actually sewn together out of parts like we do now, which is how the uniforms would be made in the future. They wouldn't be tailored. It's not practical. Next Generation movies, again, they had a lot of money, a lot more budget, more time, and some of it's really interesting. They did new uniforms for Generations, and then they abandoned them. Some of the toys were made with them. I had a couple of them. I didn't like the new uniforms. The Klingons, well, the Klingon cleavage became legendary. Oh, the Borg, that was an awesome outfit. I wish they'd done a little bit more with it though. Like she should have had heels that sort of went through her legs or something. Like little things like that they did in some of the earlier designs that could have taken a bit more of a risk with. They didn't spend much time on the holodeck era stuff because they did a lot of period costumes in Next Gen as well. The Vulcans got a lot more elegant as the series and the movies went on. And I always thought the material spacesuits just looked... And I understand what the real spacesuits look like and that, but they just look like they wouldn't be airtight to me. They just never seemed convincing to me when they weren't like plastic or rubber looking. And then we get more detail. There was more detail that was really visible in the film on the Borg Queen outfit, but I still think they could have been a bit more extreme with it. Made it look more like a robot body that didn't necessarily have to have total human form. I hated Insurrection because they just look like a bunch of hippies. And all earth tones and at least the dress uniforms in Insurrection looked, I thought, really elegant, and they did a really good toy of it, Playmates. I was always a bit torn on his outfit in Nemesis. It was kind of asexual, like it was so tight, he didn't really have any form. It's just, but at the same time, it's like a jumpsuit. It's kind of weird. It's very fetish, but doesn't really show anything. It wasn't really sexual, so not sure. Some photos it looks interesting, other ones not. The Romulans from the original series, they did a good job with that. They played with a lot of textures sometimes when they didn't really have time to really do a lot of, I think, construction of the actual design, piecing it together. Next Gen was a bit weird. They made it really boxy. Deanna's dress was nice in Nemesis. Spin-off series. Now I hated the Enterprise jumpsuits because they look too much like NASA ones, and that would make sense in like an environment like the space shuttles we have now and stuff like that, and the space stations and stuff, because you're not just walking around like normal, but on a starship you're walking around like normal. They should be wearing more normal clothes, uniform clothes. That's the only picture of the uniforms I ever liked, though, mostly because of how Trip's posing. But yeah, and they do make the series look a bit dull because the only colour, there's a lot of grey, and then the uniforms are blue, and there's not a lot of colour. It's not until later in the series that they put some colour into the set. If they'd done these in maroon or something brighter, it might have been better. Deep Space Nine, I always felt that the uniforms later in the Next Gen looked more sewn together and not as streamlined as the early Next Gen ones. I hated the Bajorans. I hated the little boots. Although Major Kira at least had a bold colour. The later Next Gen ones, the construction was better, but the grey really, it's like they were afraid of colour. As they went along, they got afraid of colour. And a lot of movies are doing that. All the films look so washed out, they have so little colour. And it really affects, I think, how you respond emotionally to the images in the films. I think it's really underestimated. But Vedic Wen, her outfits were pretty amazing. It's like I said, some of the alien ones, they really went to town, and they really created some really amazing designs. And then some of them were just crazy and tacky as hell. Voyager. I don't know, Voyagers, their outfits always looked a bit boxy and jumpsuity, but I don't know, at least they had the coloured shoulders. They felt more Star Trek to me. Neelix was interesting. His outfits were always interesting, but he was annoying as hell. 7 of 9, the cat suit, it was just really to exploit her body, but people liked it. The Chaotica stuff was interesting. They had a lot of fun there, obviously. Enterprise again. The jumpsuit, hate it. Probably will end up buying one eventually just so I can wear it to the conventions, but I never liked the look of it. Makos. At least their suits were shiny and looked plastic. They really looked like spacesuits to me. Some of the other ones didn't. And they were reuses of the Next Gen Nemesis uniforms. I don't know, somehow T'Pol's outfits, even though they're still cat suits, seemed a bit more subtle than 7 of 9's silver one. You miss a lot of little details that they put into the costumes. The reboot. Now, I loved the reboot's costumes. Those were pretty awful, and you don't really notice them in the film, thank God. I never liked them. But these ones, I love these. I actually have about 15 or maybe 10. About 5 different custom ones, and then the different types that Ruby's had. The boots, I loved them. They were Donna Karan or Gucci or something. They were female motorcycle boots that were recolored, and they're very hard to find anything like them. And again, the spacesuits looked real. The Vulcan costuming was elegant, especially Spock's old Spock Prime, his uniform, what he wore. I never noticed they didn't have ranks on the arms. I don't think they need to give them arms and make them as boxy as they did in the later series, the later movies, the third movie. But I do see there's an issue there, which I never even noticed at the time. They did a good job with the Romulans. They were beautiful. Vulcans, yeah. That's Leonard Nimoy loved that outfit, and he did look great in it. The Starfleet wetsuits that didn't hide anything. I have the official I forgot the name of the company that makes the costumes, and it doesn't look anything like that. The color in person, it looks green, but apparently that's what it looked, and that's how it photographed. So that's why I end up getting a bunch of custom ones that actually look like in person what it looks like on screen. The Klingons were interesting. We didn't really see them. The copper Vulcan suit, that was gorgeous. Some of the coloured swimming swimsuits actually look really good. The red one that Uhura wore looked great, but the grey ones the men wore, I don't know why they didn't do them in blue. That would have been really, really good. But the grey ones, they just look horrible. Khan, yeah, little hint of his outfit from the other movie. But yeah, the costumes are fun. I love the fact there's a whole book about them. I wish they'd emphasised a bit more the motion picture ones and a little bit of detail on some of them. I can't believe I spent 16 minutes talking through that. It seemed a lot quicker. Well, I'm going to go. Hopefully someone got something out of that. I'm still trying to find the perfect costume. I still don't have an original series. I like the third season ones better because in person the material looks better. On screen, I think actually the velour looks kind of better in a way. But I'm just going to have to get both because I've been trying to decide for years which to actually get, and I still don't have one. But I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think of the book and costumes or anything you want to comment on. Comments are fun. I like it when people tell me things that I would never have heard anywhere else. Thanks, bye.